The first thing we need to do for this project is draw an 8 by 8 inch square in the center of our paper. Now, I'm sure by now you have started to see a theme, that these optical illusions come in 8 by 8 inch squares. I don't think that you have to always do them that way, but I found for measuring purposes and that it's just easier to go by an 8 by 8 inch square. You could always try to make it smaller or larger, but I find 8 by 8 inch works fine. So let's center our 8 by 8 inch square. And we're going to start just by coming to the top of our paper, lining the edge of our ruler up to the edge of our paper, lining the 0 up to the edge of our paper and just marking where our square is going to be. So remember, if we're doing an 8 by 8 inch square in the center of our paper and our paper is 12 inches, then we need to take off 4 inches, 2 on each side. So we'll come into the 10 from the 12 on this side, and we'll come into the 2 on this side, and we're just going to leave our little marks. We're going to come to the bottom of our paper, line our 0 up to the edge, measure over 2 inches to the 10 and mark our little spot, come over to the 2 on this side and mark our little spot. Now we're going to make our outside guideline. So we're just going to go right across, connecting those 2 spots. We're going to come to this side of the paper and we're going to do the same thing. Just marking those 2 spots like that. Now we're going to measure down from the top of this side. So again, my paper is 9 inches, so I need to take ½ an inch from the top and the bottom to make it 8 inches. Come down on that line ½ an inch, come up from this side on this line ½ an inch, and do the same thing on this side of my paper. Lining my 0 up with the edge of my paper, that's 9 inches, come down ½ an inch, come up ½ an inch, and then we connect those lines at the top and the bottom. And make sure you're on the correct ones, because I'm a little confused. So I'm going to come in and measure to make sure I'm doing the right lines. And if your marks are close, it's better to measure and make sure you're connecting the correct 2 lines. Now I have my 8 by 8 inch square in the center of my paper. For this one, we're going to measure the middle of each of our edges. So we're going to go along the top, and I'm going to come to the center, which is 4 inches, and put a little mark right there. Turn my paper to the other side and measure 4 inches on this edge. Put a little mark, and I'm going to do that on both of the other 2 sides. Come in 4 inches, make my mark, and the last side. 4 inches and make my mark. There we go. Now we have all 4 of our sides divided at the halfway point. Now we're going to connect those halfway points. So I'm going to go from the top of my paper to this right edge. So I'm going to connect those 2 halfway points. Then I'm going to connect this top point to the left side of my paper. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Connect the bottom halfway mark to the left halfway mark, and the bottom halfway mark to the right halfway mark. Now we have a square with a diamond on the inside. Now we have to find our center point. So to find our center point, the easiest way to do that is to just simply draw a very light line as a guideline across the center from corner to corner and from corner to corner this way. So we're making an X to find our center point. So now we have our center point in the center here. So for the next part, we're going to measure on each of these diagonals every 1/4 of an inch. And if you remember from our warm-up activity, we started from the center and worked our way to the edges because, like in the warm-up activity, that last little section is not going to be a full 1/2 inch. And it worked out just fine. But as long as we're measuring from our 0 and the center point out, it will be okay. So we're going to put our 0 on that center point in this top corner, and we're going to mark every 1/2 inch. If I can get my ruler lined up. There we go. So 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, all the way down. And then you'll see that it's a little over a 1/4 of an inch left, and that's okay. So we're going to turn so that we're measuring our 0 from this point. So we're going to line our 0 up right there, and we're going to do the same thing so that we're keeping this section the same size as this corner over here. And we're going to mark every 1/2 inch again. We're going to do that for each of our sides. So we're going to do the same thing starting at our center point right here and mark every 1/2 inch with our 0 here this way, with our 0 here that way on each of the other 3 sides. I'm going to show you one more side, and then you guys can do the last 2 on your own. So 0 is lining up to the center point, and then I'm going to put a little mark every 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to rotate my paper to where I can line my 0 back up with that center point. And then put my little 1/2 inch marks along that side. I'm going to do the same thing for the other 2 sides. You guys do those too. Now that we have all of our measurements in place, we will start drawing our lines. So we're going to start in this corner, and just like in the warm-up activity, you're going to connect this point to each of your halfway line of your 1/2 inch marks. So on this first side, it'll be like this, starting from the corner to each of those 1/2 inch marks on both sides of that halfway line. So that one's already done. And if you get a little off, you can erase, because I got just a little off with my line right there. That's why we're doing them white. And you just redraw your marks so it's lined up better. And you have this entire corner finished. So now your paper will look like this. From here, you're going to finish the other 3 corners of your paper. Once your drawing looks like this, it's time to add the lines from the center radiating out. So we're going to basically do the same thing that we did in our 4-inch square. But this time we're going to the middle of our 8-inch square. So we're going to start with putting our pencil in that center point. And we are going to draw a line connecting to each of these 1/2 inch marks on all 4 sides of our diamond on the inside of our square. So we'll connect from the center point to each of those halfway marks along this first side of the paper. And again, that center line, and I messed up, let me fix that. That's why we do light guidelines, because it's easy to erase. And our center line is already drawn, and it connects, oops, and that made me get it. See, I got off a little, that's okay, there we go. So see, it's already connected to that center point, and that one should be traced as well. Then we finish along the edges until we've finished that one side of our diamond. So we're also going to do this line to here. Then we'll add our line here. Rotate our paper and continue on down the other side. And you will do this same thing on each of the sides, connecting from the center to every single one of our 1/2 inch marks. When you're finished, it will look like this. And again, we already are seeing the illusion. To add in the pattern and the coloring, watch part 2.